May Christ be with you.
And also with you.
A reading from the Good News according to John.
Glory to you, O Christ.
It was before the feast of Passover, and Jesus realized that the hour had come for him to pass from this world to Abba God. He had always loved his own in this world, but now he showed how perfect his love was. The devil had already convinced Judas Iscariot, begot of Simon, to betray Jesus. So during supper, Jesus, knowing that God was returning to, had put all things into his own hands, and that he had come from God and was returning to God, rose from the table, took off his clothes, and wrapped a towel around his waist. He then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel that was around his waist. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said, "Rabbi, you are not going to wash my feet, are you?" Jesus answered, "You do not realize what I am doing right now, but later you will understand." Peter replied, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." Simon Peter said to Jesus, "Then, Rabbi, not only my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus said, "Anyone who has taken a bath is clean all over and only needs to wash their feet. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For Jesus knew who was to betray him. That is why he said, "Not all of you are clean." After washing their feet, Jesus put his clothes back on and returned to the table. He said to them, "Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and sovereign, and rightly, for so I am. If I, your teacher and sovereign, have washed your feet, you should wash each other's feet. I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you." This is the good news of Christ, our wisdom. Praise to you, O Christ. So this year, I found I was comparing myself to a toddler who wants to read the same book, or these days, watch the same video over and over and over again, all the while acting as if it was the first time they heard it. That's how I'm feeling about these readings. All the readings we'll hear during the Triduum, starting with tonight's scripture. As we all know, these are the holiest days in the church calendar. Our Palm Sunday liturgy and homily last week reminded us that we must not skip over the sorrows of this time to jump right into the triumph of Jesus's resurrection. And I think we all agreed. As the Palm Sunday readings were a mixture of joy and sorrow, so too are tonight's. As I placed myself in the gospel, I was sad knowing Jesus wouldn't be with us much longer, and felt the grief and anxiety that the disciples must have felt. Then my emotions turned to outrage and disbelief when Jesus announced that one of his disciples had betrayed him. As I looked at the bigger picture, I decided, after sitting with these emotions for a while, to put them aside for now. I wanted to concentrate on Jesus's loving lessons imparted to his followers and us, his giving us a new commandment, and his assurance of his presence with us at all times through the establishment of the Eucharistic meal. I do have a certain fondness for the Holy Thursday readings, which came, I believe, as a result of my ordination to the diaconate. As a deacon and a follower of Christ, I am a servant. I remember Bishop Ketta's charge to me 6.5 years ago at my ordination with bringing the world to the church and sending the church, all of you, out into the world to do what Jesus demonstrated in today's gospel and asked his disciples and us to do in his name. In that request to all of us, there is also certainly an expectation of humility and inclusivity. I know we all strive to live an exemplar life, but we are human, just as the disciples were. So the question is, how do we remain faithful to what Jesus asks of us? It seems pretty simple at face value. If we follow his directive to love one another as he has loved us, we should have no problem. However, in my opinion, we are not capable of practicing unconditional love like Jesus. We are capable of practicing altruism. You know, that practice of doing good deeds without expecting a reward and thinking only of others. We must, however, remember and be careful not to allow attitude to ruin those altruistic moments. For example, helping someone only to have that someone ask you for one more thing, which you are capable of doing or giving, except that you want to go home and eat lunch or watch a baseball game. And so that wonderful moment of helping someone out of the goodness of your heart gets tainted a bit, either by not extending your altruism or complaining about the inconvenience when you do. What is available to us to sustain our commitment to answer Jesus's call to both love and serve one another? The answer can be found in Paul's letter to the Corinthians as he reminds that community of the establishment of the Eucharistic meal by Jesus. Think about how many communities and how many generations that wonderful ritual has been passed down. And to think all of this happened on the very same night, that is Jesus's demonstration and request to love and serve one another, and the beginning of the Holy Meal. That's one of the things I love about being Catholic, that we have the ritual of the Eucharist every time we get together as a community. And we get that sustenance from Jesus. Both the washing of the disciples' feet and the Last Supper were parting gifts from Jesus to teach and sustain the disciples on their journeys, which they were about to take. So too is the Eucharist for us today. I love Jesus's words, As I have done, so you must do. Jesus didn't turn away when he saw poverty, hunger, discrimination, and suffering. He did something about it. The Eucharist reminds us of Jesus's words, "Do this in remembrance of me." I think those words refer to both the Eucharistic ritual and serving others. The body and blood of Christ is the sustenance we need to do something about the injustices we see and experience. My epiphany about these readings is how wonderfully intertwined the Eucharist and the answering of Jesus's call to service are. I seem to have a greater realization and appreciation this year of Jesus's plan to pass on to his disciples and us the ministry he began. While we know Jesus got together with those closest to him on this night, aware that he was going back to Abba God, he didn't leave them or us out to dry. In the short 3 years of his ministry, Jesus established a community of followers, showed them that he was the Messiah, though not the conquering king that they thought the Messiah would be, and taught them a new way of living. As his time in this world drew to a close, Jesus didn't leave until he demonstrated humble servanthood. He didn't leave until he gave them sustenance to continue their quest to carry on the work to bring God's realm to our world. It is now up to us to be the hands and feet of Jesus, the disciples, and the communion of saints. Can you think of one more altruistic act of love and service, no matter how big or small in time or effort, to add to your repertoire? Sometimes that's asking a lot, but I think we can all do it. So I ask you to give it some thought.